Jumping right into Carrie. So you've mentioned before that you auditioned for it only a couple weeks after moving to LA, and that I guess director Brian De Palma and George Lucas were doing auditions together for Carrie and Star Wars, which is so weird because they're such different films. But can you tell us about that first big audition and what they asked you to do?
Yes, that was just, fortuitous, kismet, whatever you want to call it, because I realized with my musician husband that, he was on a different track than I was. He was involved in a lot of the recording artists there in New York City. He was from East Hampton. He enjoyed New York City. I had been there now 5 years and was kind of thinking, I don't think I'm really right for the Broadway scene. And even though I liked a lot of people, I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, I couldn't stay up late. It was perfect for modeling because you got to get up early, you got to keep your skin looking nice. And so I decided I was going to move to LA. And it's very bizarre because, in those days, I guess in your 20s, things were easier and you weren't as afraid. I guess I had one little white Samsonite suitcase. I only had a modeling agent. She told me, I'll hook you up with Nina Blanchard in LA. Lester Lewis did not have any LA connections. So I landed, took a cab to the Magic Hotel in Hollywood Boulevard, wow. Got a room. And within the next couple of days, Nina Blanchard, who was right down the street on Highland, said, oh, there's this casting situation going on. There's just these two guys are seeing everybody, all teenagers. You want to go? And I said, sure. So put on my overalls. The red hat was mine. I wore it because I was a model and was told, don't get sun on your face. You have to keep your skin looking nice. And I walk in after waiting an hour and a half in the hallway with a million other kids, walked in and it was George Lucas and Brian De Palma. At that point, we did not know them. We had never heard of them. It wasn't like a big deal. And Brian turned to George and said, I'll put her on my list. And George kind of nodded. And I turned to go. And Brian said, next audition, wear that hat. And I said, my red baseball hat? And he said, yeah. So subsequent 3 auditions later, which pretty much everyone that ended up in the movie was at those subsequent 2 or 3 auditions. And we just had read-throughs of the whole script. And every time he'd say, wear your hat.
Did you read for multiple roles?
Well, it was funny. It was at his apartment on Fountain. I remember Bill Catt and Amy Irving, and I think even Nancy Allen. The only person that wasn't there was Sissy, because she didn't come until the day of the screen tests. And that's because Jack Fisk was her husband and he was the set designer. And he was begging Brian, please let Sissy at least audition. Now, she had already done Badlands and a couple other movies, and he thought she was perfect. But I guess Brian didn't want to include her. And he kept thinking Amy Irving was going to be Carrie. So she was always there. And so we would sit around the coffee table and we would take turns reading all the different parts, which, I actually did my screen test for Nancy Allen's part, Chris Hardison, because there wasn't really much for Norma. Norma had one line in the script. She was not in the Stephen King novel. There was no character Norma. And then because of the way in the opening scene, when I take off my hat and hit Sissy over the head when she misses the point in the volleyball game, and one of my pins gets stuck in her hair, and I just ripped it out. And afterwards, I'm like, "I'm sorry, Sissy." And she said, "No, it's going to be great. It's going to look great on screen." And then Brian said, "That's so funny. We're going to book you for the rest of the time, and you're going to just be with Nancy Allen. You're going to be your best friend." And so that was all ad lib and all added and not in the script at all. And so I'm so grateful for my hat, for Brian, for Nancy.
I was just going to say,
wow.
you were originally cast just to be kind of like one of the girls at the school, not to be one of the wow.
Yeah.
And
I had a line. I mean, the opening line was "Thanks a lot."
Talk about being at the right place at the right time.
All because you were protecting your face from sun in LA.
Yes.
Yeah. That is crazy, and that's such a good story about, and then look, and you become like, the second in command on the bully side, I guess I would say, right after
anything for Chris.
Exactly. I mean, when you're the head bully, you got to do it. Well, so, right after that big volleyball scene is the infamous plug it up shower scene, which is, chock full of nudity. And